How to make an offer they can't refuse, like Vito Corleone. Now, it's without question that the character of Vito Corleone is one of the most famous and most recognisable icons in cinema history. The story of a poor Sicilian orphan rising up through the ranks of the criminal underworld is a story that we all know well and love.
You spend time with your family?
Sure I do.
Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man.
Now, Vito is nothing short of a strategic mastermind, and I will be doing a full breakdown on his character in the future. But one of his greatest strengths that I want to talk about, that granted him the ability to become such a powerful person, was by getting people to do what he wants them to do, by making an offer they can't refuse.
I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
It's too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Now, making an offer they can't refuse is one of the most quoted lines from the whole of the Godfather trilogy, and is a principle that we can take a lot away from. The simple idea behind this quote is a core pillar in the game of power and strategy. To get what you want in life or business, you will have to inevitably deal with some cutthroat people. Now, usually you should concentrate on striking a deal on favourable terms for both sides and parties. But sometimes, this isn't necessarily the case. The world isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and you will sometimes find yourself in some situations where it appears that the person on the opposite side of the table is scheming to screw you over. Now, you can learn little psychological tricks to improve your negotiating skills, but this doesn't give you a core fundamental foundation to rely upon. The reason why Vito was able to become so successful was because he was able to overcome these situations when people tried to screw him over. And the principle that is based upon making an offer they can't refuse comes down to the 20th strategy of war. Maneuver them into weakness. The ripening for the sickle strategy. No matter how strong you are, fighting endless battles with people is not only exhausting, but it is also costly and unimaginative. Wise strategists generally prefer the art of maneuver. Before the battle even begins, they find ways to put their opponents in positions of weakness, so that victory for them is easy and quick. Bait enemies into taking positions that seem alluring, but are actually traps and blind alleys. If their position is strong, get them to abandon it by leading them on a wild goose chase. Create dilemmas, devise maneuvers that give them a choice of ways to respond, but all in all work out to your favour. Channel chaos and disorder in their direction. Confused, frustrated and angry opponents are like ripe fruit on the bough. The slightest breeze will make them fall. And this is the principle that you can learn in order to make someone an offer they can't refuse. When it comes to any type of conflict, there are mainly two distinct styles of warfare. One being the war of attrition, a concept where two sides directly face off, and they both battle it out until one or the other gets crushed or surrenders. This style usually favours the side that has the most resources and size. Think of it as just two guys swinging punch after punch at each other, both waiting until one knocks the other one out. In this type of battle, it usually will be the person with more size and strength that will win. We can say that this is more of a sunny way of thinking, declaring all out war and seeing which side outlasts the other.
No more, not this time, Consigliere. No more meetings, no more discussions, no more Salazzo tricks. You give him one message, I want Salazzo. If not, it's all out war, we go to the
Some
match.
of the other families won't sit still.
They hand me Salazzo.
Your father would want to hear this. This is business, not personal.
They shot my father, that's
Even the
business or
shooting of your
ass.
father was business, not personal, Sonny.
But we all know how that ended out for him. Now, given that Vito travelled to New York all alone as a child, it's quite an understatement to say that he made quite a success for himself. But he didn't get to that position by just pure brute strength.
That I cannot do.
He got to that position more by strategically maneuvering himself into positions of strength. This is what leads to the second style of warfare, and the strategic thought process behind making an offer they can't refuse, and that is the war of maneuver. This style of warfare is a completely different way of thinking. Instead of slugging it out and hoping for the best, the steps towards maneuver warfare is to manipulate your enemy to make the confrontation as less costly and violent as possible. It's all about maneuvering yourself into a position of strength and your enemies into positions of weakness, rather than fighting them head on. That way, the physical strength and size of your opponent is less of an advantage. Now, there are a couple ways that you can use in order to implement this strategy, but one of the main tactics that Vito uses is by creating dilemmas. Most of Vito's opponents throughout his life were likely to be clever and resourceful, and he knew that if his maneuvers simply present them with a problem, they would have inevitably solved it. But by presenting them a dilemma, this completely changes the dynamic. A dilemma is a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made between two or more alternatives, especially ones that are equally undesirable. We can see how Vito does this when trying to solve out the situation with Johnny Fontane and Jack Waltz.
I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want.
It's too late. They start shooting in a week.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
He first sends Tom to try and broker a movie deal with Jack, but Jack appears to be playing hardball, and it appears that there is no way Tom can convince him.
Now you get the hell out of here! And if that goomba tries any rough stuff, you tell him I ain't no band leader. Yeah, I heard that story.
Thank you for the dinner and a very pleasant evening. Maybe your car could take me to the airport. Mr. Corleone is a man who insists on hearing bad news immediately.
After a rather failed diplomatic approach, this is when Vito orders for the head of Jack's prized possession, a $600,000 horse, be cut off and placed into his bed, making Jack wake up with something a bit more than morning wood. This whole situation creates a dilemma for Jack. Even though he may not want to choose Johnny Fontane for his movie, he doesn't want his own head chopped off either, which is what causes Vito to get what he wants in the end, and solves the whole situation.
You're not too tired, are you, Tom?
I slept on the plane. Yeah, there's so lots of notes here.
Now, I'm not saying to kill the man's cat and hang it from his roof to send a message, but can you see the effect of what putting someone into a dilemma does? By creating a dilemma, you take the opposition away from their position of strength, and it lights a fire up their ass to do what you want them to do. The reason as to why Vito does this so effectively and knows what exact triggers to push is because he creates a plan with branches. He will sit down with his family and create a detailed plan with a strong analysis of the situation, which then allows him to decide on the best direction to follow, and grants him several options, branches that he can take, depending on who the enemy is. We can see this during the meeting of the 5 families, where he is able to deduce the true puppet master behind the war between them all.
When I meet with the Tatalia people, should I insist that all these drug middlemen have clean records?
Mention it. Don't insist. Bazzini's a man who'll know that without being told.
You mean Tatalia?
Tatalia's a pimp. He never could have outfought Santino. But I didn't know until this day that it was Bazzini all along.
He then goes on to warn Michael of what will happen in the event of his death, and helps him plan out what actions he should take next.
Bazzini won't move against you first. He'll set up a meeting with someone that you absolutely trust, guaranteeing your safety.
And at that meeting, you'll be assassinated.
Because of Vito's detailed analysis of the situation, it left Michael in a position of strength, even after he died. This information that Vito left Michael behind with put the Corleone family 2 steps ahead of their rivals and allowed the family to come out on top.
Barzini wants to arrange a meeting. He says we can straighten any of our problems out.
You talked to him?
Yeah. I can arrange security. On my territory. All right.
All right.
All right.
You know how they're gonna come at you?
They're arranging a meeting in Brooklyn. Tessio's ground. Where I'll be safe.
I always thought it would have been Clemenza, not Tessio.
It's the smart move. Tessio was always smarter. But I'm gonna wait. After the baptism. I've decided to be godfather to Connie's baby. And then I'll meet with Don Barzini and Tatalia. All the heads of the 5 families.
I mean, even in death, Vito still had a hand over his enemy's downfall. I mean, it was him and Michael that devised the whole scheme of killing off all the other heads of the families. This whole event puts everyone in the crime world into a dilemma, but also introduces chaos and maximum disorder. It was either to go to war with one of the most powerful families in New York, after just witnessing them murder all the other heads of the other families, or to swear allegiance to the Corleone family and go back to how things were, making them an offer they can't refuse, putting the Corleone family in a position of strength and everyone else in a position of weakness, which is what ultimately restored the power and control of the Corleone family to its previous heights. Now, just to sum up, in an ideal situation, you want to work on a compromise between 2 parties, and you're both fairly gaining from the situation together. But sometimes you are going to have to deal with people who just want to see you burn. But by concentrating and using the strategy of maneuvering your opponent into weakness, this is what will grant you the power to be in a position like Vito Corleone, to make them an offer they can't refuse. It's not necessarily about the offer itself. It's more so about how you position the offer. By ensuring to create a detailed plan with a strong analysis of the situation, you can then work out what triggers and traps that you can build to create a dilemma for your opposition, to put them in a position of weakness and put you in a position of strength. And that is what is going to grant you more power in your life and in the world of business. So if you like this video, make sure you smash that like button and leave a comment below on what your thoughts and feelings are about Vito. I will be doing a full character breakdown on him soon, and I will dive in a lot more deeper into his character. But this was just one principle that I just really wanted to get out there. So off the back of that, comment some of your favourite lessons and quotes from Vito Corleone, or feel free to suggest what character you would like to see next. And if you are new to the channel, welcome to the channel, and to all our loyal subscribers, we are glad you are here. We do some of the best character breakdowns on the whole of YouTube, and we aim to produce at least one high quality animated video per week. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any golden knowledge. I'll see you soon.